first is, this is the day of the inauguration. It's the 8th day. And it corresponds with the first day of creation, which is the first day of Nisan. A major day of celebration for Klal Yisrael. And the Medrash says that Aaron's wife, anybody know her name? A great trivia question. What was Aaron's wife's name? Elisheva. Elisheva, the wife of Nachshon the sister of Nachshon ben Aminadav. It says earlier in the Torah, it says Aaron married Elisheva, the sister of Nachshon ben Aminadav, was the one who jumped into the sea. When they had to split the sea, Nachshon, when they're standing at the sea, the water is raging, and Moshe is saying, okay, everybody go in, and everybody was frozen. There's different opinions who jumped in, whether the whole tribe of Yehuda. The standard opinion is that the one who jumped in first was a man named Nachshon ben Aminadav from Shevet Yehuda, and Elisheva was his sister. And Rashi points it out earlier in the Torah. I don't remember which parsha. I think in Parshas Bo. I think it's Parshas Bo. I'm not positive. But so when it says that Aaron married Elisheva, the sister of Nachshon, Achos Nachshon, okay, all right, and I want you to tell what school she went to. Why does that matter? So the Rashi brings down over there the comment from the Medrash, from Chazal, that a man, when he gets married, you should always check your wife's brothers, check the potential wife's brothers, because that's who most of your children are going to resemble. Your sons are going to resemble your wife's brothers. Now, resemble does not necessarily mean physical resemblance, even though often it is. It doesn't mean it's a physical, but certainly in character, in general personality character. I have 4 boys. I have 4 that are not boys, but I have 4 that are boys. And what do you call it? Of my 4 boys, my wife and I have spoken about this many times. Obviously, there's a little bit of crossover, my family, her family, that sort of thing. But if you would say whose general personality, they're much more like her brothers than like my brothers, right? And I've seen this in other families where they tend to, and obviously there are other aspects of it, like the intelligence is definitely my brothers, but the what do you call it? The general personality, the general demeanor, and even in our case, the physical appearance is much more like her brothers than ours. And that's what Chazal say. You have to check out. Sometimes it's too late, and sometimes, but I think the reason for it is because the one that has the most influence on the children is the wife, the mother. Mother has more influence on the children than the men like to think they do. But the fact of the matter is that the wife is the one who really leaves the most of the imprint on the children, and her imprint comes from her family, from her brothers. She grew up with a father and with brothers, and the brothers that she had are the ones that's the influence. That's her personality as well. So that's what now. So the Medrash says, the reason I bring this up, the Medrash says that there was never a woman in history who had such a good day like this woman Elisheva. Her husband's been appointed Kohen Gadol. Her brother-in-law is the leader of the Jewish people. Her brother is the head of the tribe of Shevet Yehuda. I mean, this is a woman who comes from a very miyuchas dika family. This is a woman who comes from, there was a certain Jewish community where the Rav of the community was Nifter. And the Rav of the community was the son-in-law of the previous Rav of the community. There was a Rav, and then after he was Nifter, his son-in-law took over. And then the son-in-law was Nifter after serving for about 40 years in this community. And they needed to appoint another Rav. And what happened was the sons of the Rav was Nifter, none of them wanted the position. None of them wanted it for whatever reason. Each one had a different reason. He didn't want to take over the community. He didn't want to be the Rav of the community. And the wife the community was without a Rav for several years because the wife was insistent. She said, listen, I'm the daughter of the Rav and I'm the wife of the Rav, and the next Rav is going to be one of my sons. And she had a number of sons. And so it was a very delicate situation. They didn't want to appoint somebody as long as she was around because she would be very hurt. Yet they were without a Rav for a few years, so eventually she moved away. She moved to the figure, then they appointed the new Rav. So Elisheva, the Gemara says, there was never a woman who experienced such prominence, such call it importance, whatever the word would be, as this woman Elisheva, the wife of Aaron HaKohen. Now, what happens on this very day? If you take a look at Pasuk 590 at the bottom, this is where we're going to pick it up. So they bring these offerings to the Mishkan, How do you know if God is favorably disposed to all of your efforts? So at the bottom of page 590 it says, Vateitze eish milifnei Hashem, a fire comes out from Hashem. Vatochal ala mizbeach es ha'olav es ha'chalovim, it consumes the offering, bottom of page 590, 2 lines from the bottom. It consumes the ola and it consumes the fats. Vayar kol ha'am, the people saw vayaronu, and they, how does Artsco translate? They sang out, vayiplu al pneim, and they fall on their faces. So, you know, it's like when you offer something, and you just want to, you know, was all of our effort good or not? You know, and if you're ignored, so you realize not, and all of a sudden a divine fire comes out from heaven, which wouldn't be happening if God wasn't pleased. And the divine fire comes out and it lands on the mizbech and it consumes the offerings, and there you are, and the people are overjoyed that their devotion and dedication has been accepted. Okay, so everything is going well now. You're at the pinnacle. You're at the pinnacle of joy, success. Absolutely can't get any better. And then look at the next page. Vayiklu b'nei Aaron nadav v'avihu ish machtaso. Nadav and avihu, each one takes a fire pan. Vayitnu bahen eish, they put in fire. Vayisimu aleh ketoris, they put in the ketoris. Vayakrivu lifnei Hashem eish zora asher lotziva osam. They bring a fire which they were not commanded to do. This is on the day of the right on the day of the inauguration of the Mishkan, they bring an offering. Now, there are different opinions that they go into the Holy of Holies. You know, exactly what happened. We'll talk about that in a second. Bottom line is they brought an offering, highest level offering, which they were not asked to do. Vateitze eish milifnei Hashem, a fire comes out from Hashem, vatochal osam vayamusu lifnei Hashem, they die. Right in the middle of the pinnacle of joy for everybody in Klal Yisrael, especially Aaron and his wife and everybody else, and all of a sudden 2 sons die. The fire comes out and they die. And the Chazal say the fire consumed them on the inside, not on the outside. Their bodies were intact. Each one, two streams of fire entered their nostrils and burnt out their neshama. That's what the Medrash says. Now, what does that tell you right there? The fact that their bodies were intact in the neshama. What do you say, Shalom? Very quickly, 10 words or less. What does it tell you? 10 words or less.
Their intentions weren't as pure as what you would see from the outside.
Excellent. In other words, very good. In other words, anytime you see how good that was, and it was less than 10 words. See that? Getting better. Well, now you just took it over 11. Well, listen, a lesson learned is a lesson earned, or something like that. Isn't there something like a lesson earned is a lesson burned? I don't know exactly. So the idea is correct. You see, the fact is that on the outside, if you would have looked at it, you would have thought, wow, there's a great thing to do. That means there was some flaw hidden from your average eye, which only God can see the flaw. There's a flaw over here. And the average person, if you ask, will say, yeah, that's great. Where else do we find such a thing, by the way? Do you know where else in the Torah do we find such a thing? Shalom.
Avram's brother.
Avram's brother. Excellent. When we find that Avram Avinu jumps into the fire, and he's saved, right? When Nimrod says to him, here's the fire, here's your chance, here's the fire, and Avram goes into the fire. Who's standing in line? His brother Haran, Lot's father. Keep in mind that Lot is Mashiach. The Mashiach comes from Lot. So his father is the patriarch of the Messianic line. Now Haran is standing there watching what happens, and he says, well, if Avram lives, then I'm with Avram. If Avram dies, I'm with Nimrod. Right? The fair weather fan. So Avram lives. So what does Haran do? He says, I'll go in. Who are you with? I'm with Avram. And he goes into the fire and he dies. The Medrash says, physical did not get burnt, only the neshama burnt. I understand. You know, the man was. The answer is that if we were there and you looked at Haran and Avram, you probably wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. They both look like very holy rabbis. And here's a man. Listen, the easiest way out is just to say I'm with Nimrod. Then for sure you're okay. And instead he's willing to go into a fire. I mean, that's tough. He's willing to go into a fire. That means that his level of faith was at some subtle level different than Avraham Avinu that you wouldn't have seen if you were there. I wouldn't have seen it if I was there. We would not have noticed it. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's going on inside. So the first rule is over here, Nadav and Avihu did something wrong. Now, I want to go through, I want you to hear this. The Medrash says like this. First of all, Moshe Rabbeinu, based on a pasuk early in the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu knew that on the day of the inauguration, somebody's going to die. That he already knew. He assumed it's going to be the greatest people. It's going to be him and Aaron. Okay? Now, look what Moshe Rabbeinu says. Vayomer Moshe el Aaron, fourth line. Hu asher diber Hashem. This is what Hashem, right after they die. What does Moshe say to Aaron? He doesn't even try to console him. It is a consolation. But look what Moshe says to Aaron. 592, fourth line. Vayomer Moshe el Aaron, Hu asher diber Hashem. This is what Hashem has referred to when he spoke. Lamor, and he said, Bikrovai ekodesh. Through those that are close to me, I will be consecrated. How does the Ark Scrolls translate? I'll be sanctified. Better word. I will be sanctified. V'alpnei kol ha'am ekaved, in front of the people I will be honored. Vayidom Aaron. Aaron is silent. Aaron is silent. Now I want you to see Rashi over here. Hu asher diber Hashem. Hashem has mentioned this. Heichan diber, and where did Hashem say this? Because it says, "V'no adati sham livnei Yisrael." Earlier in the book of Shmuel, it says, "I will appear there to the Bnei Yisrael." V'nikdash bichvodi, and it will become sanctified through my honor. Al tikri bichvodi, don't read it as bichvodi, ela b'mechubadai, those who I am honored through. That means that when Hashem said it, there was a subtle reference to the fact that on the day of the Mishkan being inaugurated, then Hashem is going to be sanctified through the death of somebody very holy. Amar lo Moshe la'Aaron. Moshe said to Aaron, Aaron ochi, Aaron my brother, Yodea ha'isi she'is kadesh habayis b'miyudav shomakom. I knew this, that this Mishkan will be sanctified through those who are close to God. V'ha'isi savar obi obach. I thought it would be through me or you. Achshav ro'eh she'ani she'im gedolim mimeni umimeka. I see that they're bigger than we are. Nadav and Avihu were chosen as the offering, so to speak. They're bigger than Moshe and Aaron. That's what Moshe says. Nadav and Avihu, Aaron's two. Aaron has 4 sons. Nadav and Avihu are chosen. So stay with us. Stay with us. I'll hold all questions and comments for a few minutes because we have to develop this a little bit to understand what's really going on here. What did they do wrong? From the plain meaning of the pasuk, it looks like they brought an uninvited offering. That's the plain meaning, okay? Now the Medrash says there's a whole list of things they did wrong. Number 1, they went in shesuye yayin. Shesuye yayin means that they had drunk wine before they went in. Number 2, the Medrash says that they were once walking behind Moshe and Aaron, and they said, when are these 2 old men going to die so that we could take over the leadership of the generation? Okay, now keep in mind, by the way, that if they said that, and they're on a higher level than Moshe and Aaron, it can't be that they wanted the leadership of the generation just for the honor. They're on a higher level than Moshe and Aaron. So it wasn't the honor they wanted the privilege, and they wanted the ability to lead the generation. Okay, we'll see what that means. Number 3, it says they did not consult with each other. They didn't consult with each other. There's even one opinion that they thought of this idea, and they didn't go together. There's one opinion that says they thought of the idea independently. Each one took his pan full of ketores, and all of a sudden they met each other in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's like, what are you doing here? They both thought of it independently. They didn't consult. They didn't consult with each other. Number 4 says they did not get married and have children. Why didn't they get married and have children? Because they felt none of the women in Klal Yisrael are on a level high enough to marry us. We're on such a high level that I can't just marry a commoner. You have to marry somebody who's on, and not commoner in honor, commoner in devotion. We need a woman who's on a very high level. And so the Medrash goes through a list of things that they did wrong over here, which is all that led to their death. So one of the commentaries, the Nesivos Sholem, one of the great contemporary Hasidic, passed away a few years ago, Sholem Noach Berzovsky. So he says like this. He's got a very interesting approach to the whole subject. You see, how could it possibly be that they're greater than Moshe and Aaron? Moshe himself says, and Moshe wasn't joking around here. He said, Aaron, listen, I thought it would be me or you. I see they're greater than us. Moshe wasn't just saying that because he wanted Aaron to feel good. Moshe said it, he meant it. How could somebody be greater than somebody else? I mean, if they're greater, shouldn't they be leaders of the people? Shouldn't they be the leaders of the people? So the answer is not necessarily. The answer is that there are different neshamas that come down. You could have a greater neshama, but your neshama isn't necessarily the leadership neshama. And a person has to know that when somebody is the leader, you have to submit totally to the authority of the leader. Now look what happens here by Nadav and Avihu. It's remarkable. The first thing they said was, when are these two men going to die so we can take over the leadership? In other words, you see already there's a resistance to submission. There's a resistance to submission. We don't want to submit to them. We want to take over and do it our way. Number one. Number two, they don't consult with each other. They don't consult with each other. It's the same thing. What can you possibly tell me? What can you possibly tell me? There's again a resistance to submission and to accepting to receiving from somebody else, right? Number three, the Medrash also says that they paskin the halacha in front of the Rebbe. You know that the halacha is if you paskin in front of your Rebbe, somebody paskins, you're chayav misa. Not by Beis Din, misa b'dei shamayim. You don't paskin in front of your Rebbe. It says that they were moreh hurabi if they rabban, they paskin in front. Why don't you ask Moshe, if it's such a great idea, just ask Moshe Rabbeinu. Why did you paskin, this is what you should do? Again, the lack of desire to submit. By the way, I was once in Beinaz, I think it was Sukkot, Cholamoid Sukkot, years ago. This is going back probably 30 years. I was in Kollel at the time, and it was Cholamoid Sukkot. And I was davening in a certain yeshiva, and in Beit Vagan, I was davening in yeshiva, Cholamoid davening. Okay, so after davening, I messed up. I forgot Yalav Yavo. I don't remember what it was. So I looked over and I saw there was a very big Talmid Chacham who was in the show, and he was talking to a friend of mine. This is a man who was a Rebbe. He was talking to a friend of mine. So I walked over to them. They were in the middle of talking. I walked over to them, and I said to the Rav, do I have to say Shemon Esrei? I forgot Yalav Yav or whatever it was. I have to say Shemon Esrei again. So before the Rav could answer, my friend interjected and says, yeah, you have to say it over.
Wow.
Or whatever it was. He said, yeah, no, whatever he said. So I looked at the Rav. He also, he popped in, and I looked at the Rav, and the Rav just went like that. So, okay, so I go back and I daven, and after I daven, my friend comes over to me. He says to me, by the way, I want to tell you, after you walked away, he turned to me and said, you realize now you're chayiv misa, don't you? Don't do it again. Right? And my friend even said to me, as he said it, he realized he shouldn't be doing it. Okay, he blurted it out. Okay, so that's a very severe avera. Now, they didn't get married and have children. Why not? The answer is that to get married and have children means you're going to give over now. You're going to be the one giving over. You're going to be the one who is transmitting to somebody else. If you're not willing to accept from somebody else, that becomes part of your character, and it's very difficult to draw. If I don't accept from others, I'm not going to give to others either. You understand? It all fits, it all ties, all these midrashim tie together. The remarkable one is that they were drunk. What does it mean they drank wine? What does it mean they drank wine? So, the Gemara says, you guys will love this, a woman who is drunk behaves like a man, which you've probably seen. A woman who drinks, she becomes aggressive, and she becomes more forward than she normally would be or should be. I mean, there are very few sights in life that are as off-putting as a drunk woman. A drunk man is funny. A drunk woman is gross. Right? Why that is, I don't know, but it is. And so the Gemara says a woman who is drunk becomes aggressive. She becomes forward like a man. Okay, now you want to hear something remarkable? What's the numerical value of Zohar, male? 227. What's the numerical value of Nekeva? 157. What's the difference between 227 and 157? 70. What's the numerical value of wine? 70. Put the 70 of wine into a woman, and she turns out to be a male. How do you like that, Chaim? Ain't no accidents, right? Put 70 into the woman, she turns into a male. Now, that's cute. That's cute. What's the difference between a woman and a female? Essentially, what's the difference? The man is the one who influences. The woman is the receiver. He is the mashpia. He's the mashpia. The husband is the one who, in all ways, physical and otherwise, he's the mashpia. She's the receiver. Nadav and Avihu, if Chazal say they drank wine, what does it mean? They were in male mode. They weren't in receiving mode, which is what they should have been. They were in male mode, which means Nadav and Avihu simply the common denominator in all of their flaws is they overstepped their bounds. That was not your job right now. Your job right now is to receive instruction from Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron. You overstep your bounds. You're not a receiver. You want to be the one who's a giver, and then you turn out not to be a giver either. You don't get married and have children because you can't even draw the line. You don't even consult with each other. That's the flaw of Nadav and Avihu. You should know that in many yeshivas, sometimes they'll have certainly at the later levels. Sometimes they'll have one of the students will put together something in the Gemara and give the shir. He'll give like what's called a chabura. He'll give the shir. When I was in Kollel, so we had to do that periodically. Each one of us had to put together something and then give it over to the rest of the group. When I was studying in Kollel. So there was a yeshiva here in Israel, what's called Yeshiva Ketana. Yeshiva Ketana is usually between the ages of 13 and 16. 13 and 16. And so in this Yeshiva Ketana, they came up with the idea that the boys should, they should prepare something to give over. So they asked Rav Shach Zatzal. Rav Shach was the Gadol Ador. They asked Rav Shach what he thinks of the idea. He said not to do it. He said not to do it. Why not?
It's overstepping their boundaries.
Very good, very good. He said, Rav Shach said, it's not what they need right now. Right now, what they need is training to receive. They are students now. The minute you allow him to get up and give over, then he's going to think, well, listen, and I'm also an opinion here. Right? And then that'll affect his ability to then receive down the line. That's not the time for you to do it. And when you're in Kollel, it's something else. You're training for later on in life to give over something else. Right now, that's not the time to do it. And that is the flaw of Nadav and Avihu. The flaw of Nadav and Avihu is they weren't ready to receive. Look at Aaron's reaction over here. Vayidom Aaron. Vayidom Aaron. What does Vayidom Aaron mean? Silence. Aaron remains totally silent. It means in a moment of intense tragedy, what's Aaron's reaction?
Right.
Silence. It's all for the best. It's all for the best. That attitude of all for the best. Now you have to keep this in proper perspective. Take a look at the next pasuk. Top of page 594. Vayidabra Hashem el Aaron lemor. God speaks to Aaron. And take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, Vayidom Aaron, says Rashi, Kibel schar al shtikoso. He got rewarded for his silence. Umaschar kibel. What was the reward? Shenisiached imo hadibur. That the next command, the command from God, came directly to him. Shenemra lo levado parsha shesuya yain. The next chapter, which talks about Kohanim who are drinking, remember we spoke about that yesterday, that was communicated to Aaron. Okay? And what does God say over here? Let's just read a couple of psukim, and then we'll come back to this. Top of page 594. Vayidabra Hashem el Aaron lemor. Hashem says to Aaron, Yain v'sheicher al teish, don't drink wine or strong drink. Ato v'necha itach b'vacham el ha'moed v'lo samusa. Don't drink the wine and you won't die. Meaning that if you do, you will. Chukas olam l'dorosechem. Ulahavdo ben hakodesh v'nachol v'natov v'nator ulahorotzes b'nei Yisrael yiskol achuk b'sher diber Hashem aleim b'yad Moshe. Okay, so Hashem says to Aaron, Kohanim should not drink. That was his reward. What kind of reward is that? Why is that a reward for his silence? Most people at a moment of intense tragedy, they may blurt out something. It's not fair, why me, something like that. Which is interesting because nobody ever says that when something good happens. Right? Somebody wins the lottery, never starts crying and says, why me? You know, or says, well, me, I deserve it. I did good, I deserve. When something difficult happens, the person says, why me? Aaron is silence. What's his reward? He is given the command that when God commands about not getting drunk, comes out, why is that a reward? Why is that a reward? What's the main reason it's a reward? What's the main reason it's a reward? I once read about a heroin addict who got off of the heroin, eventually was weaned off of heroin. He said he never found any pleasure in life that ever came close to it. He missed it. For 30 years he was off the heroin and he missed it. Never found any pleasure in life that could match it. The sensation of being, of heroin. Never found any pleasure. Why did I bring that up? I don't assume anyone here is a heroin addict. Why did I bring it up? I'm assuming that you assume that I'm not either. So why did I bring that up? Right? Why did I bring that up? The answer is that prophecy was an intensely pleasurable experience. A person who experienced direct prophecy from God never, the rest of their life, nothing matches prophecy. If in those few moments let's say Lecha Dodi, like we were talking about yesterday, where you're like this, and it just feels so good, right? Where you feel that you are really connecting, and it feels nothing. If you do a big mitzvah, you help an old lady, take her, you sit in the hospital with her all day, and you walk away, you feel so holy, right? You do a big mitzvah, you feel so holy, you're ready to give yourself a bracha. Right, you just feel so holy. Does anybody realize the greatness they're in the presence of right now? You just walk around and you're consumed with feeling good. You're just consumed with a good feeling, right? Nothing matches that feeling. Nothing matches that good feeling that a person has. Everything else is artificial. And that good feeling multiplied and intensified very much as what prophecy was. When a prophet experienced prophecy, he lost his senses. It was a spiritual buzz that is unmatched. So what's Aaron's reward? His reward is he gets a prophecy. If it says, Vayidaber Hashem al Aaron Lemor, anytime it says Hashem spoke to somebody, what is that? If Hashem speaks to somebody, what is that? That's prophecy.
Yeah.
Aaron got prophecy. However, keep in mind, what's the incredible irony here?
He was awake.
Doesn't say that.
It doesn't say he was sleeping.
Doesn't say that. What's the incredible, that's a description of prophets. What's the incredible irony here? What are the requirements to receive prophecy?
Let's be asleep.
You don't have to be asleep. I think that it happened the other direction. As the prophecy came, a person just lost his senses, right? What else? You have to be extremely holy, right? What else do you have to be?
Rich.
You have to be rich. That's one of the reasons on prophets. You have to be rich to be the Kohen Gadol. You have to be rich. Say it, Sam. You said it.
Pure, tahor.
Tahor, but you said it out something else.
Happy.
Yes. You have to be in a state of joy. You have to be in a state of joy. Isn't that interesting? I mean, think of the irony. Yirmiyahu HaNavi, when he talks about when he gets a prophecy about the description of Yerushalayim, how did he receive that prophecy? You have to be in a state of simcha. Interesting. Tells us something about simcha. Aaron just had 2 sons died. So clearly simcha doesn't mean dancing with a guitar in the background. Simcha, whatever it is, refers to some sort of state of mind of closeness to God. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But he had to be in a state of simcha in order to get the prophecy. Can you imagine what level he's on? As opposed to falling to pieces when his sons die. This is why later on in the Torah we find that a Kohen Gadol, it's interesting when we'll learn about the laws of the Kohanim, a Kohen, a regular ordinary Kohen, is allowed to come into contact with his 7 nearest relatives. 7 nearest relatives are father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, or wife. Them he is allowed to become tameh, in contact with his closest relatives. A Kohen Gadol is not. Kohen Gadol is not allowed to be in contact. If a Kohen Gadol's wife dies, or his father dies, or his mother dies, he's not allowed to come into contact with the dead. He's not allowed to be within 4 amos of them. The Kohen Gadol is not allowed to become tameh with the nearest relatives. Why not? The answer is that the Kohen Gadol has to be on such a high level that anything in the physical world he's totally detached from. He's detached from any connection to his next of kin. That's part of the physical world. He has to get himself up to a level where even that doesn't allow him, he's not allowed to be involved with that. So Aaron over here is silent, and Aaron is rewarded with a prophecy as a result of his accepting what God did with equanimity. Now, that brings us to the idea, which we've spoken about in the past, of Gamzu Latova. What does Gamzu Latova mean? This too is for the best. This too is for the best. What that does is, if a person is going through a challenging situation, a person is stuck in traffic. We're supposed to say this too is for the best. We don't necessarily see why, but we're supposed to say this too is for the best. A person's stuck on the middle seat of an airplane on a transatlantic flight. This too, they actually had a story. A guy sitting on a plane. He's sitting in, there's a guy sitting here. He's sitting in the middle seat, and all of a sudden a guy comes walking down the aisle of the plane. The guy weighs about 400 pounds. He comes walking down the aisle of the plane, and he looks at this guy sitting in the middle seat. He says, "Do you know who I am?" So he goes, "No." He's a big, humongous, flubby guy, 400 pounds. He says, "Do you know who I am?" He says, "No." He says, "I'm your worst nightmare." And the guy sits down next to him. I think now the airlines have actually passed a weight limit on people. I think they're trying to pass a weight limit where you have to take 2 seats. He says, "I am your worst nightmare." Yeah, the guy comes down. Yeah, yeah. Apparently, did they pass it already? Are they
No,
doing?
I think
They're debating it. You know, I am your worst nightmare. So the what do you call it? So when a person says Gamzul Tova, a difficult situation, we don't necessarily see the good, but we're supposed to understand and get ourselves to the point where we understand this is truly for the best. It is truly for the best. Therefore, don't complain against God for whatever the hardship is. Something good will come out of that hardship. Something good will come out of it, whether we perceive it now, later, at some point, it'll be perceived. Okay, that's as far as Nadav and Aviv. Okay, now let's go on very quickly. Just towards the end of the parsha, the Torah talks about. I'm not going to go reading through the verse. The Torah talks about all the forbidden foods, what we are allowed to eat, what we're not allowed to eat, all the various forbidden foods that Jews. And we don't eat rodents, and we don't eat bugs, and we don't eat we don't eat any of these. The kosher, the non-kosher fish, and the non-kosher fowl, and non-kosher animals. The whole idea of kashrus. I actually knew a man who used to go travel to the Far East. And so when he was in the Far East, I told him I was once in Hong Kong. I was in the airport in Hong Kong on my way to Australia. So when I went to this, I told him I had been in Hong Kong. He said to me, "Did you go sightseeing in Hong Kong? Did you travel around? Did you walk around a little bit?" I said, "No, I have no interest in anything cultural." And there was no reason for me to go traveling around Hong Kong. I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. He said, "Well, you missed it." He says, "You should have gone to the open air market. You ever been to the open air market in Machane Yehuda? Now they sell sunflower seeds, pistachio nuts. You buy an assortment of nuts and seeds that they sell openly." So he told me in Hong Kong they have an open air market that sells like bugs and creepy crawly creatures. And you walk over there, they have it on display, and you say, "I'll take 200 grams of those red ones," and the guy takes a bag and he scoops in 200 grams of some red crawly thing, and I'll have a couple of those long squiggly ones over there, I'll put that in, and they have a rodent, what do you call it, a bug market where you can go in and you just, that's what you sprinkle in your food or whatever it is, that sort of thing, and we're repulsed by that sort of thing. Right, we're repulsed by that sort of thing, but they, apparently that's I guess it's an acquired taste, and so they have the open air market. So the Torah says over here there are all sorts of things you don't eat. Now, you have to understand again the mistake that people make. People think that the Torah is everywhere you look in the Torah there's a limitation. Control yourself, control what you talk about, control your eyes, control your food, control your drives, control your mind, control your mouth. Everything has to be self-control. Now, did the Torah say not to enjoy life? It never said not to enjoy life. It just says control yourself. These foods are off limit. These foods are off limit. So I've never had pork, and I'm assuming it probably tastes good because otherwise people wouldn't eat it. People usually eat things if they taste good. The Torah says you can't have any. The Torah says you can't have any. Now, the mistake people make is if you look at all these limitations over here, okay, so what is the Torah want from me? The Torah wants me to maximize my pleasure, just avoid in other words, spend my life immersed in pleasure, just don't step out of bounds, don't break the rules. That's a mistake. It's not what the Torah wants. The Torah says, it's an obstacle course. If you can get through the obstacle course, you'll be okay. Some people see 613 mitzvos. Some people see 613 problems. Got around the problem of pork because we now have imitation pork. You can get imitation bacon, kosher bacon you can get now. And you could have a cheeseburger two different ways. You could have a meat burger with parva cheese, and you could have a parva burger with milchik cheese. Isn't that great? Good. Took care of the problem of what do you call it, of meat and milk. Now what's the next one? Mechitza. Well, they got these two-way mirrors and shuls now. It took care of the problem of mechitza. Great. Now I can dive and look at the women, and I got a mechitza too. So it's all you missed the whole point of the Torah. You missed the whole point. It's not the point. The point of the Torah is not get through the obstacle course and have a good time. That's not. The point of the Torah is learn self-control. Learn self-control. The point of the Torah is, okay, it's kosher, therefore I could dive in and indulge. Then you miss the point of the Torah. It's kosher, and you still have to maintain self-control. You still have to that's the point of the Torah. The Torah is saying these things are off limits. But it doesn't mean, well, this is off limits, this is kosher. Yahoo! $20 all you can eat. You ever see these restaurants? They have these $20 all you can eat restaurants. So there's a famous one in New York, they had $20 all you can eat. They took off the special during Ben Azmanim, when the yeshiva guys were back during Ben Azmanim, they took off the special at the restaurant. Because they knew the yeshiva guys, $20 all you can eat, the place is going to go close down. You're going to go bankrupt. Yeshiva guys, they don't even wait for the animal to be shechted. So if you have $20, all you can eat. So a couple of women come in, so they start with a salad and a soup, and then they'll have some white chicken. The yeshiva guys come back, they don't want to see anything other than meat on their plate, and it's all you can eat. They can eat out of house and home. That's not the theme. That's not the goal of the Torah. The goal of the Torah isn't maximize your pleasure, just don't stick your foot out of bounds. The theme of the Torah is self-control. That's why you have all these limitations. I had a guy here who told me once years ago, he became a Baal Tshuva. He said the most difficult test he had as a Baal Tshuva, his struggle as a Baal Tshuva, was that his favorite food, he was seafood, and his dream meal was a shark steak with a side order of like shrimp and lobster, something like that. All as treif as can be, right? And that was his battle. His battle in life was that he could not have. And there was a guy sitting in, there was an older guy sitting in the shir at the time. He'd been around a little bit. And the guy was there. I said, how good could shark steak be? And this guy said, yeah, shark steak is very good. He said when he would treat himself, before he became frum, he said when he would treat himself to a fancy meal, he would go get a shark steak. And you can't eat it. You can't eat it. Now, I wanted to speak today. We don't have time. I want to speak about there are substitutes, even for the non-kosher things. If a person has to have it, there are substitutes in life. The Gemara talks about one of the wives of one of the Tanoim, Amoraim. She said to him, what can I have instead of this? And he told her she wanted to taste chazer. She wanted to taste pork. What does pig taste like? So he told her there's a certain fish. If you eat the brains of a certain fish, it tastes just like chazer. The Gemara has a list of things. The Gemara says, well, a married woman is forbidden. Married woman is forbidden. But if you marry a divorcee while her husband is still alive, so then it's kind of almost the same. It is almost the same because part of the fun is knowing that you're stealing something from somebody, right? So if you're married, you mess around with a married woman. So it's what's called ma'im geduvim im taku. The stolen waters are sweet. The stolen waters are sweet. That's why, but so you can't have that. But is there anything that even remotely resembles that? Yeah, if you marry a divorcee while her husband's alive. Because then there's a sense that you're involved in something that really belongs to him, but now you've taken it over. That's the idea. So the Gemara gives various substitutes for foods also. Certain things taste like certain things, right? But again, the underlying theme is not to try to find the substitutions and not to try to make the underlying theme is that we live with self-control, which is obviously easier said than done. They once said, have you ever heard of this? There's a restaurant here called Entricat. You've been to Entricat? So my mechutin, my daughter's father-in-law they were making a family bar mitzvah, so he took everybody to Entricat. So what I wouldn't do for family relationships, I went, and I had never been there, and I certainly wouldn't spend the money on it, but I was there, and what can I do? I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I should have listened to myself talking just now before I went there. It's easier said than done, but that's the goal.